Okay, well, before we begin, I would just like to state for the record that today is February 20th, 2023, and my name is Ben Bauman, and I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, speaking via phone with Cleo Duncan, who's located in Greensburg, Indiana, and we are doing an interview for the Indiana Legislative Oral History Initiative. So just starting off, when and where were you born?
I was born in Gary, Indiana, on July 26, 1941.
Okay, and what were your parents' names?
Peter and Frida Raptakis, Raptakis.
Okay, and when did your family first move to Indiana?
I'm trying to think. My mother was born here in Indiana.
Okay.
And my father immigrated from Greece.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. And let's see. What were your parents?
She was born in 1919.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting. And so, did you learn any Greek growing up?
That was my first language.
Oh wow. Okay. So that's really cool. Nice. What were your parents' occupations?
My father owned a restaurant, he didn't when he started out, but he ended up owning a restaurant and then a tavern.
Okay, cool.
When he had the restaurant, he worked 7 days a week, and we never saw him. And so he and my uncle decided to open a tavern instead. And at that time, Indiana taverns were closed on Sundays. And so we had one day, with him all day, and we'd do family things, which some included going to Chicago to the museums and to different places there, and because Gary's so close to Chicago.
Right.
And but the main thing was we had Dad home a day.
Yeah.
All day. So yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. And so did you?
My mother was a homemaker, although she did help with some of the cooking in the tavern.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
I have a brother, and he is 3 years younger than I am, and he lives in Florida.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So how would you describe your childhood growing up then?
Well, we lived with my grandparents. That's another thing. And we had a very close family. And I don't know, we were very fortunate. We had an intact family, and we didn't have much, but we didn't know it.
Yeah.
But I went to Horace Mann High School in Gary, and it was a pretty good percent of the kids that graduated from there went on to college.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. What did you know about your family's political views growing up?
I'm trying to think. Well, my father was very devoted to this country. He was a naturalized citizen, and he just was so grateful to be here. And so it instilled a very it had a very big impact on me and my mother also. Both were just very proud to be Americans and appreciated country.
Yeah. Okay.
So that kind of went down to me.
Sure,
And,
sure.
yeah.
All right, cool. Now, what schools did you attend growing up?
Let's see. I did not go to kindergarten,
Okay.
but first grade was in Gary Emerson. No, yeah, Gary Emerson. But then we moved to a different district, and I went to Horace Mann Jefferson Elementary School, and then to Horace Mann High School in Gary.
Okay. And how would you describe your educational experiences?
I think very good.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see, after that I went to Ball State and got my undergraduate work there, and then did my graduate work at Purdue.
And what was your major at Ball State?
Let's see, English, political science, and journalism.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then graduate work was in counseling and guidance and in English.
Okay. And so, when you're growing up in Indiana and you go to high school and college, did you have a particular view of Indiana growing up? Did you kind of understand Indiana's place in the United States and sort of the culture of it compared to other places, or?
Well, when you grow up in Gary,
Yeah.
you think that you're part of Chicago.
Sure, okay, yeah.
But when I went to Ball State, it was, a pretty enlightening experience as to what Indiana is,
Mm-hmm.
outside of that one little corner of the state.
Yeah.
So it was a very good, enlightening, broadening experience.
Okay. What were your goals after you graduated from college?
I went into teaching and went back to Gary. I taught for a year, and then I had an opportunity to take a job with Xerox Corporation in public relations. And so it was a customer rep position. And I worked there for a year. But the idea of making people happy with their copiers as opposed to helping kids find their way just didn't cut it for me.
Yeah.
So I quit and went back to teaching. I taught in an all-black junior high, and I had requested to go back to the junior high there when I went back. And actually, two of the Jacksons were students of mine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was, this is before, it started out before they were discovered. And so our homeroom would have pitch-in dinners, and we would have the kids come and perform. And we'd go to their house and help load up the instruments, and they would come to the school and perform for free. But the family was grateful that they would get a good meal.
Yeah.
That was the first year. The second year, they had joined the musicians union, so they were starting on their way. And they still performed for free, but they counted us as a practice. So,
okay.
yeah. And they were very nice kids.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, historical, I guess, situation to be in, where you're connected to the Jackson family, obviously.
But who knew that they would become
Yeah.
so huge. But,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, when did you end up getting married?
In 1966,
Okay. And do you have any children?
yes, we have 3 girls. We have Beth. She was born July 4th, 1968. Vicki, September 14th in 1970. And Mary, January 30th in 1973.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. So, when did you become more seriously involved in politics then?
Well, I'll go back here. Indicate I've always been very active in the community. I think that comes from my mom and dad, feeling so grateful and wanting to give what they could. And I had been active in the community, and we had some deaths and permanent injuries of kids using alcohol and getting into cars. And so I became more involved in providing positive alternatives for the kids. And one year we had a student council exchange day of all 3 high schools in Decatur County. And the kids were discouraged because there wasn't anybody in public office who was an advocate for them. And so that day, without having a clue about anything, I went to the courthouse and signed up to run for city council. I had no clue about political protocol or anything. I didn't ask anybody anything. I just thought, well, anybody who wants to run for office can.
Yeah.
So I did, and was elected. But I have to tell you, I'm Republican,
Mm-hmm.
but my opponent in the fall election was a dear friend, and I had introduced him to his wife.
Okay.
And on election night, we had dinner together. He went to his headquarters, I went to mine, and then got together after the vote was in and just
Wow.
hugged it out, But that was how I felt about politics or about government. I guess I'm not so much a politician as I am a public servant.
Okay.
So anyhow, I got onto city council, and there I was. I saw things happening at the state level that I thought should be changed or done differently. And after a lot of prayer and urging, I ran for a state representative and was elected and served 16 years. And then retired, but I'm still active in different organizations trying to help people. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. And so, what kind of shaped your political outlook at that time when you were, running for office and stuff?
Oh gosh, I guess I'm conservative, but I tend to lean more to moderate conservative.
Okay.
And every bill, with the exception of one, that I sponsored was bipartisan. I felt that what I did, I wanted it to be for everybody.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Did you have any national political heroes or anything?
Yes. I certainly liked Ronald Reagan. I loved Richard Lugar. He was a statesman, and he worked with both sides of the political aisle, which I think if we're going to get anything done, it's very difficult to get anything done if you don't have more than a little bit of support.
Sure.
I was the first woman to chair transportation in the House. I'm trying to think. And during that time, I was co-author of Major Moves, which was the only bill I sponsored that was not bipartisan. But with Major Moves, we were able to lease, not sell, but lease the Indiana Toll Road, which was a big drain and difficult to keep up. And we leased it for $3.8 billion in cash up front. That moved Indiana into a AAA bond rating, which allows us to this day to do business much more cheaply than other states that don't have that rating. In that agreement with the consortium that won the bid for the lease, it included building at their expense, all of this is at their expense, a police headquarters for the toll road, paying for the police officers who would be there patrolling, and their benefits, and their vehicles, and for keeping up the tollway. That was their responsibility totally. So I was there the day when the cash was transferred from there to Indiana, to our state. I pressed a button, and we got notice that $600 million had just been transferred to Indiana. We had several. It didn't come all from one place,
Yeah.
But it was quite a day. And again, it was a lease, not selling. How can you sell your road? You can't sell the road. You can't pick it up and move it. Anyway, and let's see. I was also active in the Women's Caucus. We would meet once a month during session, and we would agree, both sides of the aisle, both houses, on issues that we felt were important that we could agree on, and we could all encourage our caucuses to move forward on. And we also raised money for non-traditional women students so that they could continue their educations. This would be like single moms, people who had maybe stayed home to raise their kids and then wanted to go back to school. and that kind of thing. So the women worked together, both sides of the aisle, both houses. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been in the House since 2010, but I think we did some pretty good things.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot going on when you served.
Yeah. I was on the Autism Commission when we first started out. Indiana provided one of the least amounts of help for people with autism and their families, and little by little, Indiana became very good at providing help for those in need and to get a little bit of respite for their caregivers. So that, and I'm trying to think what else. I know there's a lot of things that in the time I was in that I worked on. One of the biggest things for me was helping people who called and needed help. I remember there was a gentleman who needed surgery and was tied up with red tape, and I was able to work with the agencies and able to get him the help that he needed to get surgery. And I know that prolonged his life for several years. But things like that all the time made serving such a blessing. I had over 300 town meetings when I was in office. I started out having them at the libraries, and nobody would show up.
Okay.
And so I went where they were having coffee and eating lunch. And so that's where I ended up having the meetings. And I'm sure at first they go, is she nuts? But then they got so used to my coming, they just looked forward to being there and learning what was going on at the State House and letting me know what was going on with them so that I could do a better job in representing them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
But that was important to me. How am I going to represent people if I'm not there and listening to what they have to say? And I mean, in person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an important part of the job if you're a legislator, I guess. Yeah.
I never took it for granted.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't have an opponent in the next election,
Yeah.
I just always felt that it didn't matter. I needed to be there for the people I represent.
Sure. So when you first ran for the Indiana General Assembly, did you have any particular campaign strategy at all?
Well, I went everywhere I could. I went everywhere I could, and I was in every parade I could be in. But I just went door to door for sure, and met a lot of people, and that was wonderful because of course, some people would say, "Okay, thanks, bye," but other people would invite me into their homes, and we'd sit there and talk, and that was a wonderful experience. So
Sure.
but I think that just keeping close to the people and understanding what concerns they had and what they thought was right and not. And I guess just being in contact with them. Oh, I gotta tell you, this one time I was in Switzerland County. It's on the Ohio River. That was part of our district at the time, and they were having this kind of festival on the river, and there were different groups representing theirs, and I went to this one table, nice people. We were talking, and they were asking me questions about what I thought about anything, and they were the Tri-County Country Club, and I said, "Oh, okay, and tell me about your organization." And they said to me, "Oh, yeah, well, we're a nudist colony."
Wow.
I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I wish you well." And actually, when I'd have town meetings in Switzerland County and Vivi, they would come dressed.
Yeah.
They would come, and they were the most kind, gentle people you would ever want to meet.
Yeah.
But I think when they told me they were nudists, I think they were waiting for my reaction.
Sure.
But I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay, very good."
Yep.
So, and but anyway, I knew that nobody knew me, especially in Switzerland County. It was the farthest south from the district. I asked permission to go to their grocery store, outside their grocery store. It was the IGA. On Fridays, a lot of people would come down there to do their weekly grocery shopping. I set up a card table and had cards with my name on it, and would sit there and go up and shake hands with people, give them a card, and tell them who I was, and would ask for their support. And I told them that I was honest and hardworking, and I would do my best to represent them. So, yeah, I think I was not real conventional in what I did, but it was okay for me.
Yeah. Sure. So, what did you think of the election process when you were running, and what was your reaction when you found out that you won?
Disbelief.
Yeah.
Really, because the gentleman who had the office before me had been in office for 20-some years, 24 years or so, and I had no idea that I would be elected, but I was, and I never took it for granted.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. What were you thinking when you walked into the State House for your first day in office?
Awe. I was in awe. Thinking that here I am in the people's house, ready to do business for them.
Yeah. And did you have any particular expectations for the legislative process, or was it kind of what you expected?
At the very beginning, well, you got to understand, my first term, I was the number one target for the Democrats. Because I had defeated a long time member of their caucus, and so I was their number one target. But and at the time, Pat Bauer was Speaker of the House, and I remember him saying, "Well, Cleo, have a good weekend." And I said, "Well, thank you, Pat. You too." And I got home, and he had sent out these poison press releases.
Uh-oh.
You know, she's anti-senior citizen. She's anti-this, and it was. And I went back the next Monday, and I said, "Pat, you stinker." And he laughed, and that was kind of, after that, kind of broke the ice some.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Wow, okay, so it went after you right away, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It worked out. It worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And Pat Bauer is short. Well, I'm short. We had a short people's caucus.
Okay.
And so, even though we were on different sides of the fence, we really did have a nice relationship, a pleasant relationship.
Yeah, wow.
And honestly, I worked well with both sides of the aisle. I just never thought that one side was the bad guys and one side was the good guys. I think in our own way, we were all there trying to work for the people that we represented. We had philosophical differences, but that didn't mean that one side was bad and one side was good. It just meant that we had differences and we could still be friends, but still have different philosophies.
Sure, yeah.
So, and that was it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how did you learn sort of the ins and outs of state politics then when you were in the General Assembly?
Ins and outs.
Did you have any political mentors or anything that kind of helped you understand more about the process and the dynamics there as a politician, or?
Yeah, I think when I was first elected, let me think. Paul Manweiler was Speaker, and they bent over backwards to try to help me ease into the process, and then Brian Bosma was very kind and very helpful to me. Also, other legislators that had been there for a while were just helpful to me if I had a question about something that I could ask them. And also, I learned that that really the lobbying community, I learned about lobbyists who were good and trustworthy and ones that weren't so much.
Okay.
And I also learned with the good ones, they would give you both sides of the issue. They would tell their side, but they'd also tell you the opposite side as well, so that helped me make up my mind on some issues. But they were always knowledgeable about both sides, which I think was helpful. But also, with our legislators who had been there for a while, helped me get a feel for the history of the legislature, but also helped me see that, things needed to be changed for, I hope, the better.
Sure.
Trying to think what else. Oh, outside of what was going on at the State House, at the time, Decatur County had 1.5 exits from I-74. We needed 2 full interchanges, and every morning, the governor and the head of NDOT would get a letter from me requesting a full interchange at I-74 and the Greensburg exit. Every morning, every Monday morning, they got that letter from me. Then Honda became an issue, and at the time, they were having trouble getting people to sell property. They didn't know. First of all, the people didn't know what was going on because it wasn't made public. And I remember some of the landowners came to me. They said, "Cleo, we want to know what you know and what you think." And I said, they were afraid it was going to be a landfill or something. And I said, it is not going to be something that is going to devalue your property. And it is something that probably will create many opportunities for not only you and your family, but many people in the area. It is not something that will, devalue what you have.
Right.
And so we got together and tried to reconfigure what property Honda was looking at, and had some of the property owners there too, and tried to figure the amount of property they needed. And again, at this time, nobody knew it was Honda. With reconfiguring with possibly farmers who would be willing to sell. So we worked with the attorneys in Indy that were representing Honda, and I said, I see the tracks there, the railroad tracks, but the way we're looking at the possibility of reconfiguring, those would need to be moved. And said, no problem. And so we came up with the amount of property that would be needed with landowners who were willing to sell, knowing that it would not be something that was detrimental to the value of land and would be something of big value to the area. And so that's how the property, we got enough property for Honda to select Greensburg, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
And then the morning that Honda was going to announce publicly, the head of NDOT called me and said, "Cleo, you're getting your interchange." So,
Okay, interesting, yeah. Now, what was the first bill that you sponsored? Do you remember?
oh my goodness. Oh, no, I can't remember.
That's okay.
I should have it. I have it with everybody's signature on it. I know.
Yeah.
It was something about procedure.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of innocuous, but it had to do with procedure, and I think they just wanted me to have a bill.
Okay, sure.
But it wasn't any meaningful anything. It was just kind of just something to have as my first bill.
Yeah. So what was the atmosphere like when you served between Democrats and Republicans?
I think it was very, honestly, pretty pleasant. I don't think it was. Oh, you might have had some of them that were contentious, with each other, but mostly everybody got along. Even though you had philosophical differences, we got along. And you knew that, despite your differences, these were decent people.
Yeah.
And that's how I've lived my life, really. No.
Now, what about the differences between the House and Senate? How different were those two legislative bodies when you served?
Well, I wasn't in the Senate, but they are much more formal.
Okay.
And prim and proper. We had more fun in the house.
Yeah. How influential would you say party leadership was to sort of determining what legislation would get passed?
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to think, because the vast majority of the legislation that gets passed every year in the House is something that doesn't get publicity, and it's good for everybody. That's the vast majority of the legislation. The things that get the publicity are the more contentious issues. And depending on what party is in the majority, those issues get more traction, on one side or than the other.
Okay. Sure.
But see, the stuff that you get the publicity is the juicy stuff. That's going to sell papers and make people watch TV. They won't care about the things that, well, maybe sometimes about the things that help everybody.
Yeah, okay.
Because then everybody's okay with it. Well, that's no fun.
Right.
That's not going to sell papers or get people to tune in. Well,
true.
But honestly, the vast majority of the stuff that goes through is everybody's okay with.
Yeah. Now, did you ever go against party leadership?
Yes.
And so, what were the circumstances around that?
If it was something that I had trouble with agreeing to, and I made it my point to let leadership know if we were in control, if the Republicans were in control, and it was an issue that I did not agree with, that it's not like it would be the chef's surprise. Leadership knew that I could not agree to that issue.
Okay.
I didn't try to be sneaky about anything. I
Right.
tried to be upfront about stuff. And if it was an issue that I had trouble with, I would let them know.
Sure.
Just tell them where I stood.
Now, were there any consequences ever for doing that, or?
Not for me. No. Because I always explained what my thoughts were, and I didn't, no, not really, actually. I wonder why that happened. No.
Okay. So, let's see. Thinking of some more stuff about your service, how did your service affect your family life? Was it hard on to be away from your family and stuff for the General Assembly, or?
Let's see. When I first was elected, I'm trying to think. I think all our kids were out of school.
Oh, okay.
High school. So that, so I got kind of a late start in my public service. I think if I had lived in Indianapolis, like some of the legislators did, they could run home for lunch and they could, they
Right.
could have, but not. And my husband was a trooper. He, I was I'm trying to think, I was in Indianapolis Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We got Fridays off. We had a long weekend off. But during time, I commuted. I could have stayed up there, and I did. I stayed up there when it was bad weather, or if we had a long session, then I would stay up there. But usually I drove back and forth, and it was. I didn't mind it at all because it was a time that I could just clear my head.
Yeah.
And it also kept me grounded. I didn't. I just had my. I had myself. I always knew where my base was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So. Yeah, my husband said my youth bed home. Yes, I know. I still do.
Yeah. So you served the General Assembly for a fairly long time. How influential would you say the redistricting process was?
Well, when I was first elected, the district was drawn so that my opponent was, it was favorable for my opponent.
Okay.
But then after I was elected, I still served in that same district, but was elected by a wider margin every year. And then when redistricting, this is so weird, when redistricting came, the district became even more Republican. It took away some of my area on the Ohio River and moved me up into Rush County, which is very Republican. But you know who did that? The Democrats.
That's interesting.
it wasn't the Republicans that moved me into a more Republican district. And afterwards, they came up to me and said, "We love you, Cleo, and we want you to be there forever."
Wow.
And I thought, what?
That's crazy.
I know, but it's because I worked with everybody.
Yeah.
And I tried to be fair with everybody.
Okay. So I guess you were not one of the people they were trying to get rid of then.
No, no. And when I decided to retire, I had no opponent.
Wow. Okay.
But that was my choice because I had seen people who had stayed too long, and by the time they decided it was time, they were physically unable to enjoy their retirement and enjoy doing things with their families. And
Sure.
And I felt at that point, I thought that I had done some really good things for us, and that it was time to allow somebody else to have the opportunity to serve. So
yeah, makes sense.
now I'm going into being president of the Retired Indiana Public Employees Association.
Oh, wow.
We've got about 45 or 50,000 members statewide, and I'm trying to help the retired public employees. It's not just state, but it would be like cafeteria workers, highway workers,
Sure.
Just everyone who has been in a public office, no matter what the level, whether it be local, county, state, federal, not federal, Indiana. Anyway, trying to help them, and I also help locally. I'm in the Agape Center, and we try to. It's an organization that was founded by the churches, and we are funded by churches and individuals because we have in our bylaws it says helping people through Christ's love, and by having that as our mission statement, we don't qualify for grants from like United Fund or that kind of thing. So, but we try to help people maintain their independence if they've fallen on hard times, trying to help them get through those times and get to where they can help themselves and that. And so anyhow.
Yeah, okay.
It just, I can't stop trying to help people.
Yeah, that's good. I'm sure people appreciate that, so. So, from your experience in the General Assembly, is there anything that you'd want to change about the legislative process?
Oh my gosh. As it was when I was there, not too much. I don't know what it's like now. I'm not sure that the camaraderie is there that was there when I was serving.
Okay.
Just knowing that there are good people on both sides of the fence,
Sure.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't tell you about now because I'm not there, but
Right.
Even though, we were out there arguing about, things that we had differences in, we still got along well as people.
Yeah.
And some of them.
Okay. So do you kind of get the impression then that today it might be a bit more polarized than when you served?
Probably,
Okay.
yes. I really do.
What would you say were the most controversial legislative issues when you served?
Um, well, the bill that I sponsored, or that I co-authored, Major Moves, became political, and it shouldn't have been. But the Democrats tried to sell it as we were selling the toll road. We were selling the toll road. We weren't selling the toll road. We leased it.
Okay.
But they were trying to use it as a political tool, and it wasn't. It was, and as it turned out, it has made such an impact on our state's ability to do business. To this day, it's been tremendously helpful, and I think I'm trying to think what other things. Maybe union issues. Yeah, union issues as opposed to non-union issues. That's probably one area that you've got the two sides on.
Okay.
Other things, not so much.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Let's see. So I noticed, when you served at the time, there were some things going on. I noticed from the newspapers. So I guess there's a split House session when you served in '96.
Oh, yeah, it was 50-50.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, so what was that like?
Actually, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, okay.
Because you got people working together. Otherwise, nothing will get done.
Sure.
So, it was not bad.
That must have been a pretty unique situation to see.
Yes, it was. It was. But I think it worked out well because both of the co-speakers were friends.
Yeah.
And so really, I thought it wasn't so different than when Hank Martin and I were on opposite sides of the fence when we ran for city council.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were friends. So I don't know that it was so different for me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do you remember anything about slow down, move over legislation?
Yes.
Can you talk about what that was? Because I saw it pop up in the newspapers and.
Yes. I had a state trooper in my district who was assisting a stranded motorist. And this truck moved over, hit, and killed him.
Oh my gosh.
That day, I came home early and went to the sheriff's office and got the information, and then went to the calling, and there was his widow and their baby.
Yeah.
One of his officers asked, "Is there anything we can do to make things safer for the police officers?" And I authored the bill, the Move Over, Slow Down bill. And it went through both houses. And what it was is on a 4-lane highway or more, if there are flashing lights, emergency vehicles on the side of the road, if you can do it safely, you must move over 1 lane. If you cannot do it safely, then slow down. At the time, before this happened, there was a game that truckers would play. It was getting close enough to the state troopers where the wind from their trucks would blow their hats off. That was a very dangerous game.
Yikes. Okay.
Well, after my bill went through, that no longer happens. Indiana was the first state to pass this law, and now it is law in all 50 states.
Wow.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you about that.
No, that's why I asked, because I remember reading about it. I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see what you have to say about it. So,
it is. We'll never know for sure how many lives have been saved, but I know that it is quite a few.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, another, I guess, a piece of legislation that I saw pop up was about like safe haven.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
The baby boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that regardless of how you stand on the pro-life or pro-choice, the baby boxes are an option for anybody who has a child and cannot provide, a baby cannot provide for that child, to be able to give it no questions asked, and be able to have that child adopted by families that would love to give a loving home to a child.
Sure.
I guess that kind of started too with, I remember this one baby was left outside a hospital, and it was a very cold night, and it was dressed in a pink sleeper, and I'm sure the mother thought that somebody would hear it crying and take it inside, and nobody did, and it was found the next day with frozen tears.
Yikes. Jeez.
So, to be able to give someone, no questions asked, the opportunity, and it's not just safe haven boxes. A person can give the baby to a nurse,
Okay.
to a doctor, to a fireman, to a police officer, to any health caregiver. No questions asked. But before the safe haven boxes, some of the police officers didn't quite get it, and they tried to. They didn't understand that they were to accept the child, no questions asked. But with the safe haven boxes, also, the identity of the mother is not known.
Okay.
And that gives the person protection there from, I guess, perceived shame.
Okay.
And we've got quite a few safe haven boxes in Indiana now.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess they're at police stations and what fire stations and?
Fire stations primarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ours here in Decatur County, we have a bench near the safe haven box that if the mother wants to sit there and think about things for a while,
Okay.
a time to just think things over.
Yeah.
But anyhow, yeah.
Let's see. I guess the other piece of legislation that I saw in the newspaper was something about Kelly's Law.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Where the family has the right to address the perpetrator in court.
Okay.
We had to work on that, getting the language right, because it couldn't happen before the jury had rendered their decision. But then to give the families a chance to look at the guilty person and address them in court. And so that was Kelly's Law.
Okay. Yeah.
Because before that, they weren't given a chance to say anything in public about their loss and what this person had done to their families. And this at least gave them a chance before the judge, the trial is over, for them to at least, after the decision was given, so that this would in no way influence the jury's decision.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
give the families a chance in public to make their statement.
Sure. Let's see then. Looking now sort of at some big picture reflective questions regarding your career, why did you eventually decide to leave the General Assembly?
I guess I saw other legislators who had stayed longer than physically they should have, and by the time they decided it was their time to retire, it was kind of late to be able to appreciate your family and to be able to do things, at least in my view.
Yeah.
I remember there was one female legislator when I told her that I was not going to seek re-election. She said, "Cleo, you can't do that. We need you here. You can't do that." I said, "Well, but for me it's time, and I want to have the flexibility so that if we want to travel or if we want to do different things that we'll be able to." And that same legislator the next year was on oxygen full time. And then by the time the legislature could honor her and wish her well, she had passed away. And I will never regret deciding to retire when I did.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not still helping people. I'm doing things in the community, and now with the retired public employees,
Right.
I'm at the state level too. So, but still, I've been blessed with meeting wonderful people in my district, but also wonderful people at the state level too.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you summarize your time as a state legislator then overall?
Being a public servant was a big blessing to me. I'm not a real good politician, but I am a pretty good public servant.
Yeah.
I see good in both sides of people, and you work with people to try to bring the best.
Sure. Did you learn any lessons from your experiences serving?
Of course, about how procedure and how things work, and getting support not only from the House side but also the Senate side for your legislation to pass. Being able to reach common ground on some things. Yeah.
Did you have any regrets as a legislator?
There was one bill that I had hoped to get through, but it wasn't going to happen in my time.
Okay.
There. But it was the breathalyzer bill. If someone was a habitual drunk driver, that they'd have to have a device put on their vehicles that they'd have to take a breathalyzer before their car would start.
Oh, wow.
But that did not pass. But if I had been there long enough, it would have. But, no. But other than that, I felt that with Honda here now and knowing that I was an integral part of having that happen. When I retired, they had a luncheon for me. Honda did.
Wow.
And presented me with a plaque. Then my husband said, "But wouldn't a car have been better?"
That's funny.
Well, yeah. But I drive a Honda, but that's my choice.
Okay, yeah.
But anyhow.
What would you say was your proudest moment as a legislator?
That's hard to say because there were several. Really, we've talked about several of the things that I'm not sure. I think the overall being able to help people in my district and hopefully in the state improve their quality of life. And I don't know that I can single just one thing out.
Sure. No, that makes sense. That's fine. Let's see. Last few questions here for you. What advice would you give to future legislators or even current legislators?
I think it's important to have good relationships with both sides of the political fence. Of course, you're going to have differences in your philosophies. Otherwise, why would you be one thing or another? But to be able to appreciate each other, and regardless of your political differences, to understand that in the long run, you're both trying to do the best job you can within your own philosophy.
Yeah. What, in your opinion, is the most important work of the Indiana General Assembly?
This is, of course, the budget.
Yeah.
Is the number one issue in this upcoming election. The budget will be the number one. To be able to provide for enough resources for our health, safety, well-being, education, being able to help provide for our children's education. That's our future. But again, the budget will have a huge impact. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. What would you say the public does not know about the Indiana General Assembly and how it operates?
The wheeling and dealing of trying to get something in, like as a, not wheeling and dealing, like, just trying to get an amendment into a bill so that something can be done to either make it better, sometimes I can't say wheeling and dealing, but I would say to try to get your bill, even if it didn't get passed as a bill in itself, to be an amendment to another bill. But I don't know if there's much that the public doesn't know. I think really the media does a pretty good job of, although, this is something that was interesting. I would read something in the paper, in the Star, about why something got done or not done. And I think to myself, well, that's not what happened.
Okay.
And that's not why it happened. And it gave me a greater appreciation for my little hometown paper when you have the statewide paper who doesn't quite get it right. And they're supposed to be the hot shots. But anyway, maybe to take maybe to read something and try to get as much as you can out of it, but to also understand that it could be slanted.
Yeah.
Or maybe they didn't know the nitty-gritty and just made an assumption, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you think the state of Indiana has changed over the course of your lifetime?
Oh, boy. Of course, we have become, although in my area is rural, it's agricultural, but the effect of industry in our area, in our state, has increased tremendously. Of course, I was born and raised in Gary, where the lifeblood of that area is the steel industry.
Yeah.
But you got out of Gary, and it was agricultural almost entirely. But through the years, you've seen the automotive industry and even the agricultural industry, the equipment and the science of agriculture has changed so much. But I would say probably to see that we've seen an increase in our industries. But by the same token, now the plants that you see being constructed and redone are much more friendly to the environment than they were when the steel mills first got built in Gary.
Yeah.
I think they're much more environmentally friendly. Yeah, our universities, oh my, they've blossomed. More, just so much more being offered. So many, when I was going to school, my professors would say, you're going to school, but who knows what jobs will be when you graduate. They may not even be created yet. And sure enough, and here we are in an age where our universities are looking to prepare people for what may come in the future, not just what is, but what may come.
That's true.
And so that kind of an attitude, I think, is just really quite astounding. By the way, when I graduated from college, a woman could be either a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary.
Yeah.
But it's been quite an interesting evolution.
Sure. Yeah.
To now, what I mean, both ways. Think about all the male nurses we have, and they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, and the female doctors.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's everything has changed. Everything, but it's not a bad change. It's kind of an interesting and a good change. And certainly we've had big issues with drugs. And when I was growing up, drugs weren't even an issue. Well, it's a different world now.
Yeah, things change.
Yep. Do you have a tattoo?
No, I do not. Do you?
No, but one of my daughters does.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's becoming more common.
But no. It's different now. But yet people are still the same.
Yeah.
You look for good in people, you'll find it.
Sure.
So
that's true. Let's see. Final question then. What do you want the people of Indiana to know about their influence on the General Assembly?
Well, as far as I was concerned, it was an enormous influence. When people called me and they had an issue or a personal problem they needed help with, that was part of my job, was to serve them and to remember that a state representative is exactly that. You're representing the people who voted for you. When you stop realizing or working in that regard, it's time for somebody else to come in.
Yeah.
You are a representative. And if you ever forget it, then you have no business in the General Assembly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So how about that?
Well, is there anything that I didn't ask about that you wanted to mention at all, or?
My gosh. I hope that, sometimes if you get elected to a position, just remember people voted for you. And those people can unvote for you, too.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the job that they want you to do.
True.
And to always remember who made it possible for you to serve. And never forget them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice. Well, that's all the questions I have. So thank you so much for doing this and taking part in this project.
Oh, sure. You're welcome.